Well, I'm Jonathan Holmes. I am one of the curators here at the Air Force Armament Museum, but I'm also the chairman of the African American Military Heritage Society that is based here in Freeport, but we are actually sponsoring the exhibit that's being developed here. Hopefully we launch next summer here at the museum at one of the heritage huts that are outside. I'm very excited, and I ask all our visitors, local and from out of country and from other states, to come to this museum. We average 15,000 visitors a month. It's self-guided. It's the basic history of armament in the Air Force. We're one of the largest bases in the world. We're almost the size of Rhode Island, and we are here to help the history of air armament that has been developed at Eglin, and we just ask you to come out and give us a chance to educate you. Well, this is the actual layout of what the heritage exhibit will look like inside the exhibit hall. We are blessed to actually have Blue Sky Development, who are out of Atlanta, and we have sponsorships from Georgia Power and Light and Florida Power and Light and the J. Odom Group to actually help us out. As all projects is a labor of love, and we're about a quarter of the way there. We're working on grants. We do a lot of ceremonies. We ask everybody to actually go to our website, and you actually see the exhibits being built and the actual amounts for each section of the exhibit. It'll start from Revolutionary War and work its way down to most modern aspects of military history. Each one of the sections has a dollar value. So if any corporate sponsors want to sponsor an exhibit, they can, from Revolutionary War to Tuskegee, all the way to World War I and World War II. You know, it's dedication to the uniform, in and out of it. It's a labor of love for our flag, and it's something that God has put on me to push that needs to exist. There is not one freestanding exhibit dedicated to African American military, and by God, I'm going to make it happen.
How you doing? Josh White here. Welcome back to another episode of the HeroFront Podcast. Blessed to sit down with the incredibly talented Jonathan Holmes Sr. Okay, he works at the Air Force Armament Museum right outside Eglin Air Force Base, which, by the way, I'm having my retirement ceremony at on September 20th, so please come through. Now, here's a little bit about Jonathan, y'all. He's a native New Yorker who still reminisces about the aroma of a good New York City pizza. An alumnus of the School of the Performing Arts in New York City, Jonathan's passion for the arts led him to further his education at the University of Maryland and in Munich, Germany. With over 35 years of experience in graphic design, architecture, digital animation, videography, photography, computer science, and networking, Jonathan has an impressive and diverse background. He's also a proud and decorated disabled veteran of both the U.S. Army and Air Force, with 19 years of service in roles like EOD and Aircraft Weapons Specialist. But today, we'll delve into Jonathan's journey from military service to his impactful civilian life, including his work at the Air Force Armament Museum and his mission to preserve African American military history. He's doing something that's never been done before. We're going to get to that, okay? We'll explore the significance of presentation and inspiration in media. See, me and Jonathan, we're both content creators. We both create next level stuff, honoring the contributions of marginalized groups in history. We can't forget our history, y'all. We're doomed to repeat it. And Eglin has a tremendous amount of history. Jonathan will share personal stories of overcoming challenges like the kidney failure he faced, getting that transplant, and his ongoing efforts to foster community inclusion and diversity. So get ready for an inspiring conversation about leadership, passion, perseverance, and the transformative power of storytelling. But real talk, y'all, Jonathan is one of my best mentors. See, here at Eglin, I started the HeroFront Podcast, and it hasn't been all rainbows and sunshine. It's been a brutal, grueling uphill battle. One of the reasons I'm retiring, it was insane. It's gotten to the point now where it's embraced with open arms, and I'm so blessed for that. But Let me tell you, I almost quit many times. And if it wasn't for going to the museum, hanging out with John, and letting him just keep me in the game, keep my head in it, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I owe this man a tremendous amount of gratitude and love, which is why I had to have him on HeroFront. Now, what he's doing, what I'm trying to help him with, is the African American Military Heritage Society. This is how Eglin was built, first of all. And there is not one. This is serious. This is true. There is not one freestanding exhibit dedicated to African American military history. And to get this exhibit complete, he needs sponsors. Each sponsor can own a part of the exhibit. Civil War, World War I, World War II, it goes in chronological order, and you can own a section of that and your business will be represented as a sponsor. If you are one of those people who want to get involved, who want to make this happen, he's only a quarter through the project. We've got a long way to go to make this happen. The website is aamhsociety.org. Alpha Mike Hotel Society.org. Jonathan owns the program. He's getting after it. He's dedicated his life to making this exhibit work. Please join us in this fight. Jonathan has such a diverse background, such a fascinating, incredible storyteller. He's one of my most favorite people, favorite mentors I've ever come across. I'm so honored to have had him on HeroFront, and I cannot wait for you to learn all about this hero. Let's get after it. All right, everyone. So I'm here with Mr. Jonathan Holmes. What exactly is your duty title here? I know we're at the Air Force Armament Museum, but what is your duty title?
I am a Aerospace Museum Specialist, per se a curator of sorts,
Okay.
and then with additional duties. So it's not necessarily taking care of the artifacts, but I do the media development, which is my primary job, and then IT and anything else that breaks in my vicinity.
Which, by the way, you know, with me being a podcaster, when I first met you 3.5 years ago or so, you know, I hadn't quite got into that space. Like, I just started.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I saw, like, your products, I was like, man, I quit. Like, this...
Time and effort.
Just because it was, like, so... I didn't know what I was expecting to see when you're like, okay, I put this together, but I was not expecting it to look like the History Channel. You know, like, just next level amazing.
Everything is time and effort. Everything is finding out where the best is and trying your best to emulate it and break it down. I mean, we're taught that in our military aspect, so business is no different in that aspect. Right. So I've been in the media art career for almost 45 years. So I've been in pen and ink all the way to motion, and then to actually 4K, and then how you see it evolve and evolve and evolve. It's like the Matrix effect. You see it, and then you're trying to figure out how to recreate it, and while you're doing it, you have another company that has millions of dollars just doing it. Mm-hmm. And you have to take that to industries that don't have it. Medical field, education, a lot of those areas are stumped only because they don't have the investment to join the aspect of technology. Right. And once you do that, it opens up doors. So this is not really done in a historical aspect for the military. They don't take their historical artifacts and put them on a playing field of media development where it hits different generations. Mm. So that was one of my key things I was bringing to the table. I did it with the church industries where they started watching the talk shows, mm-hmm. you know, and they realized those talk shows were bringing so many people in, and they were just, why are we not bringing people in? Then they started broadcasting, mm-hmm. just like the talk shows did, and that's mm-hmm. where the mega churches actually started coming from, T.D. Jakes, wow, and all that stuff like that. So if you emulate that and take it to different areas, historical development, you get different generations to understand the artifacts for what they are. Absolutely. They move, they breathe. You can do everything but simulate smell. Right. You know, so that's one of the things I brought to the table because I've been in it for a good while.
Yeah, I mean, you're a true gem and a blessing for us all to be here. I mean, you're super talented, and you understand the value of the presentation, like how it's shown, where it's shown, when it's shown. Like you really get it. So I've learned a lot, watching you and seeing how you do things. I think you brought up a great point, emulating certain things that you see. Like, you're not just straight up copying something, right? But you have to be inspired to create stuff sometimes. And there's no shame in, like, looking at what inspires you, like what hits different for you. Like, dang, like that video how did they do that? And taking that inspiration, that seed that it planted, and then trying your best to create something that hits just as hard.
Everything's I'm a programmer first, so everything has a pseudocode, a starting point of logic, and then from there, then it has a flow chart which actually dictates what we're trying to send, what message we're trying to send, and then it comes a highway. Is it digital? Is it music? Is it Mortal Kombat that has deep bass and dark pictures, or is it Transformers where it has fast movement so you can't look at the graphic capabilities of what's going on because everything is moving so fast because you can hit with colors
and some blur,
right? And then when the technology builds up, then you'll see the difference in the aspect of the graphics. It'll slow down and actually change it. It's just what you're actually, if you're looking at an old black and white video of MacArthur giving a speech, you accept the graininess of the film because it's an old black and white picture. But you wouldn't accept it if you were watching the newest version of Fast and Furious and it was in the same color.
Right.
Unless they were saying doing something for back in the day.
Right.
So if you understand those formats, it allows you to build applications that people will accept.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for letting me come here and talk to you today. This has been a long time coming. We've been wanting to hang out for a while. You're an awesome guy, amazing story yourself. So, thank you for, inviting me and this finally happening.
It's great to actually see your career take off. I mean, I'm a big fan of it. I'm just sitting aside having some popcorn, just waiting for the next thing you do, because to actually start something small and gain an audience, something nobody can't take back from you.
Right.
Because once it's out there, it's out there. 10 years from now, people will still be looking at it and accepting it for what it is, a blessed piece of information. So the roles are reversed. I'm blessed.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So here's the topics for today. We have our military history, generations forgotten, creation of the exhibit, and why it's at Eglin, and the African American Military History Society. But before we get into that, I do have 3 specific questions for you. The Hero's Gauntlet. We're going to get through this gauntlet first.
All right.
And once we're through that, we'll hit these topics.
Go for it.
All right, first question. What advice would you give to young African Americans that are new to the service?
New to the service. I've had the blessing to be in different branches of service, probably giving up my age right now, from 1984 until 2013 when I retired. So coming in now cannot be for the 1st and the 15th. I've had people come in on the financial aspect of wanting to do a steady income, but then you have to really sit down and go, it's a different branch of service since 9/11. Everybody's deployable. Right. Everybody's hitting the dirt, and if you don't have the mindset to lock down and accept that for the first 4 years of your life, and you sit in stillment of the 1st and 15th, then you're going to have a rough time. You have to have a foundation. You have to know, I'm in this career field, I see its evolution. How am I going to motivate to it? Am I going to stay in this career field for the first and then cross-train to something else, or am I going to stay in and get my degree and be in a career field that'll do me better on the civilian side, where I can take that integrity that I've instilled in Corps? But don't just come in because you're bored, because bullets love boredom.
Right.
More accidents we have are from complacency.
Absolutely.
If you're coming in, you have to look at your future. You have to move forward towards it. If not, 5 years will go by and you'll have to re-enlist because you're not ready to be on the outside, and there's no integrity on the outside. You know, you do the work and it's dog eat dog. At least inside of the service, somebody will respect what's on my shoulder.
Right.
You know, and if you're not respecting what's on your shoulder, how you expect somebody else to respect it? You want to be and have enough integrity and intelligence to what's on your shoulder blurs away and somebody can't even figure out your rank. They just understand the wisdom that's coming out of your mouth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's about the best thing I can actually give.
That's beautiful. I love it. All right, what inspired you to continue serving after losing a kidney, being on dialysis for 12 years, and undergoing the surgery to receive a new one?
You know, I've always wanted to come in the military. Growing up in New York, I didn't grow up with my father. Even I knew him, but you know, I come from a broken family. So instead of sitting in stillment, I've always been blessed to have people take me to the side. Good friends who had great fathers, and they took me under their wing. I kid you not, I grew up on comics. So I guess that's why I went into performing arts. But reading comics and taking martial arts taught me integrity, being an only child. And then when I saw the service aspect that my mom was in, then I always wanted it. And I worked for the government in '83 overseas, and I used that instillment of being around soldiers to want to be in. And then when I finally got the chance to come in, a weird story, it's a blessing. I broke my arm at age 9, and they set my bones backwards where I can't palm up.
What?
Yeah. And
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, they said I couldn't go in because I couldn't salute, right? And so this is '82, and then I went to college and I played the University of Maryland that I was telling you about, and I boxed, Golden Gloves, and I was stationed overseas. And I tried to go in '83, and they were saying the same thing. Oh, you can't salute. And this military doctor was like, well, he's punching troops in the face and knocking them out. What makes you think you can't salute? And so that's how I got into to go into the military. And I came in weapons, and I did weapons for 14 years, and I became an instructor. But I love the aspect of looking at your leadership and looking at that progression and saying, how do you get there? What are they doing wrong? How can I be part of the team? And then once you're finished looking at that evolution, you want more, then it's time to move on. And then I wanted all the weapons badges. I had weapons, nuclear, and I always work with EOD, and those guys always were like the ninjas. They come out and wave at stuff, and then they go off in the sunset. And I was like, okay, I want to go EOD. And lucky enough, I did it 2 months before the towers came down, and I was able to cross-train the EOD. Now, I did it as an old guy. I was 35.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 35 when I went to EOD.
That school is no joke.
No, and I thought it was a bad decision 4 or 5 times while I was doing it, but I got through it. I got through it by God's will, and I wanted to be at the tip of the spear. I said, if I'm going to be in the game, I'm going to be in the game. And then I lost my kidneys to F-16 incident, and the worst thing for a soldier is to lose his body. Mm-hmm. You can be tired, you put the uniform back on. You can do 16 hours on a deployment, you can put that uniform back on. But when I couldn't put the uniform back on, then it was like, all right, how do I do this? And it was the military that got me through kidney failure. It got me through the first 4 years, the first 7. And next thing I know, I was on my 11th year, and I was at the top of the list, but I didn't do it because I was losing my mom to a stroke, and I was like, oh, it's not time. I can't juggle it right now. And then at the same time, as a soldier, I was watching people getting transplants. And then they would be back 6 months later, back on dialysis, and I was like, well, what in the world's going on? And it took time to realize it takes a discipline to have a transplant. And then once I understood the things they were doing, and then, you know, once my mom had passed, actually she passed and I got it like 2 weeks later. I got my transplant like 2 weeks later. And then once I got it, it was just like a spring. I was like, okay, I want to get back in and swing at things. So I volunteered at the museum, but I always kept my trade in the aspect of media development and programming. And I wanted to do it at the museum because it's my home front, per se, of weapons. And like I said in the beginning, everything's about emulation and evolution, and how could I bring it to a new area? So I was blessed enough to do all the graphic development for the museum until the base commander at the time was like, we can't afford you anymore. We want to give you a job. And I was like, I'm retired 100%, and you want to give me a civil service position in a place I love? You crazy. Okay, I'll take it. And here I am 5 years later.
So it's only been 5 years.
Yep.
Wow.
Only 5. I came on in 19. I came on in 2019.
You're so known by the community. I figured it was more than 5 years.
No, it's a blessing to be able to adapt and talk to people. It's a blessing to be able to humble yourself, to meet new people, and to share thoughts. I hate the fact of the business aspect, holding on to secrets. If you can bless somebody with an answer, help them out, because once they find out and they realize you didn't, then they look down on you.
Right.
You know, he could have just told me the answer, you know. Right. So in the museum, with all the titles of history that dictate what the Air Force is, my job is to put them on any media development that I can, so that we can entertain all generations of service, especially the younger troops. They have to understand there are a lot of people who have sweat and tears to get them to the rank that they have coming on right now today. It doesn't matter what race and what creed, what gender. Somebody before you was in the dirt, and when they put the rifle down, they fought for equality.
Absolutely.
You know, and the newer troops that are coming in, everything's so packaged and so fast. They don't pay attention to why they're in uniform. You know, and that's really the hard thing. Why don't you go home? Sorry about that.
No, all good, all good. I love that. All right, so last question here before we get started on your topics. When you honor those who paved the way before you and before us, how does that make you feel internally? Like, how are you feeling when you're able to really capture stories that otherwise would have been forgotten to time?
It instills in your heart to actually, to talk about the individuals in Vietnam. I am so sorry. Talk about the individuals in Vietnam, the Tiger teams that were in cages on the roads of Hanoi, to actually talk about people who flew without parachutes that were of the same integrity that we actually have now. Medicine, if you deal with mustard gas wounds, all those aspects of the past that are bound by the Geneva Convention that we instill in now that are gone. Even you in the medical field, you know, it's like, how do these people actually get to this point to actually tell that story? And you sit in front of them, and they have a camaraderie because you're in service that they wouldn't tell their family because they didn't understand, but they're telling you because they want you to have that nugget of not repeating or understanding what they went through. You want to record it because you may not see them tomorrow. And there are people I've done interviews with who said, thank you so much. I've been waiting to say this for so long. And you have it. And once you have that nugget, it's like, oh my God, I want to put it on a podcast. I want to put it on a CD. I want to stream it somewhere so some soldier can sit there who was arguing because he was working 8-hour shift and couldn't get on his cell phone, you know, instead of using a Marsgram that somebody in the 50s or in the 70s was using to talk to their family while they're stationed overseas, is upset. You want them to see that video so they can relate to the fact that they have it a lot better than those individuals who are not there to give them that wisdom. And you find it as a mission.
Absolutely.
That you have to do.
Definitely. I mean, as a podcaster, I love history too, right? That's what this is. We're capturing.
Yeah.
This talk could be listened to 1,000 years from now.
There you go.
Which is kind of mind-boggling to think, but it's true.
Yeah.
I do have a bonus question for you. So I wasn't, aware that you were an only child.
Yes.
An only child, single mother. Statistically, you'd have the odds stacked against you. They say any household without a father, they're at risk for certain things, right? That's like a huge factor in the family dynamics. So what would you say? Obviously you had a fantastic mother because you turned out amazing. You're doing amazing things for people. You're an incredible guy with this incredible career. What did your mother bestow upon you? What values that made you the man you are today?
It's kind of funny. Just to be truthful, just to be, really open and clear. Me and my mom didn't get along.
Really?
my mom was, kind of. I love her to death. I wish she was still here to see where I'm doing now. But we really didn't get along. She was bitter in the aspect of not being married anymore and going through that time and age in the 60s and 70s. And I was proud of her because she worked for finance for the Army Corps Engineers, and without a degree made it all the way to GS-11.
Wow.
At that time, at that career field, that's a big thing. That's kind of director slot. And she worked for the EPA. She led Secret Service. She worked for the Secret Service,
Wow.
the finance department. She did all these things, but she forgot about family. You know what I mean? She was just so triggered on that. So, like I said, I spent a lot of times with my friends' families, and growing up in New York, I became really tenacious. You have to have an instillment on your face for people to leave you alone. But I always watched what she did, and when I got married, I thought I would make her proud, and the personal aspect of it is that we really didn't get along even when she passed, but I carry on my name, and I promised that I would have heritage. So
Absolutely.
Now I got a son and a daughter. They understand heritage. They understand, tradition. They're my enemies to banana pudding. On my birthday, I have to have banana pudding. It's just a tradition. And my wife will tell you, the kids didn't like it, and then it was all mine. They would watch me. We take pictures, and then I think when my son got to 10 and my daughter was 5, because they're 5 years apart, then suddenly they love banana pudding. And I hated it, but it was tradition.
Right.
And now that I got a grandson who's 13 months, he likes banana pudding. And I didn't grow up with that.
Right.
But I wanted to make sure that I broke the cycle.
You've broken many cycles.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I broke the cycle. I wanted to make sure. And my son works on base. My daughter's a great artist out of Denver, and they always come and tell me, "Hey, Dad, are you proud of me?" And I'm like, "I'm just enjoying watching what you're doing. No matter what you do, I got your back." And I didn't have that. So it starts with you. It can be broken, but in this day and age, if you have real friends and you're in the uniform, you can start.
Right.
You can put the foundation in the roots right there. You're not scarred. It's there, but you're in a uniform, and it teaches you to adapt and overcome. I think I may have got it before the uniform, but it was the reason why I wanted to come in. Everybody wants to be part of a bear club. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And when you come in the military, you're a part of that club, whether you get along with the Cubs or not, one Cub to another, but you'll meet somebody who will give you a spiritual nugget. And then after a while, you'll realize that you're doing it.
Absolutely.
And you take pride that that person is part of your team, not that you're preaching to them, because our job in leadership is not to direct. Our job is to make a spark. and then let that opening take that person to the next level. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah. So
I'm glad I asked that question because I was not expecting that. That was a great answer. All right, let's hit these topics. Our military history is the first topic that you put on the list.
Yes. We're a younger branch of service, and not considering Space Force.
By the way, I didn't realize that until I worked with the Army, and I'm like, my God.
Yes.
They have all these different things they do from their culture that goes way back.
Yes.
I'm like, we don't do none of that. Like, what is this?
Yeah. When they talk about controlling land mass and the history that actually came before it, there are so many stories that are not told that are of the Army Air Corps that need to be told, need to be expanded beyond black and white, beyond white and Hispanic, white and Asian. We sit in a uniform where it's blurred lines. We may have come from the Truman Doctrine that took away the aspect and brought segregation and abolished it. But as a branch of service, we went from balloons to planes, and we didn't believe in it until somebody threw a brick and took the enemy out, and then suddenly it became a major part of force. That what else we could do from the air, and that evolution is history, and this base actually is a major proof of it, what Eglin stands for. So history, I'm not going to use the cliche history repeats, but as far as like history is just wow. Once you know it, you can never. It's like perfume. Once it gets a hold of you, you just want more, and you want to dig into more, good or bad. You get it, you understand it, and it becomes part of the decisions you make in the future. So our military history needs to grow and adapt, just like all the other branches. And I think the Historical Society for the Air Force is going in that direction. I think it just has to be on a more broader playing field. Other than the newest aircraft or the newest munition, it came from something. Absolutely. It came from mistakes and successes, or else we wouldn't be building it and adapting to it. Right. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. What about generations forgotten?
Yeah, that adds back onto history. So for me. You would think because I'm building an African American history display, the first ever, you'd think it would be African American at Instillment. That's probably about 80% of me. You have Indian Americans, you have Asian Americans, Irish Americans. Each one brought a specific culture to how they existed and assisted in the flag. They all left their part of the star, of territory, of inch gain to the enjoyment we have in the aspect of being in uniform. And those stories of the suffering, not the propaganda names, not Tuskegee, not the Chappie James. There are other stories. There are people who work with them. There are people who motivated them. That stories need to be told, just in the smallest aspect. And I think knowing those pieces of the puzzle, then the bigger pieces that are out there, they need to be told, because not everybody's going to be that Chappie James. Somebody may be his wingman. Mm-hmm. We all instill to be number one, and it's great. And my biggest thing is I'd rather be number two and made sure number one went to church after he became number one, because I was a worthwhile competitive person. I want number one to go, oh my God, I was blessed just now, because number two knows my fault.
We can't forget about Scottie Pippen.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
There's no Jordan without Pippen.
Right. There you go. Because Pippen was like, yeah, Jordan bought 3 Porsches. I can only afford 1. And that's good enough for me.
Right. He was still a part of the machine that made the Bulls so successful.
There you go. There you
take
go.
that away, that
Right.
dynamic's gone.
Right.
So there are tons of other people. Nowadays, I feel like things are so much easier to capture. I mean, I don't even have many videos of me as a kid. Like, I struggle to ask my parents, where is this stuff? What,
Right.
do you have pictures? Like, I'm losing a lot of memories because I don't have anything to reflect on. And nowadays, like, I film my kids in 4K, and
Yeah.
I'm like, everything from this point on, as long as there's no like destruction that wipes it all out, obviously. But from this point on, it's safe. But when you go back before that technology, it gets really tricky to run that stuff down.
Yeah, it's hard to find, and you kind of lose yourself. You lose your foundation, and then you have to take the pieces that you have and lay roots to a new one, so that your kids are, I used to sit and talk to my kids about the guys I grew up with and my cousins, and until we met them, because we moved around a lot in the military, until they met them, they were like, "We thought you were lying, Dad. We really thought you were just making all this stuff up," and that's history.
Right.
That is history. I mean, you can change that to have somebody do a parachute in the military and go, they did what? They made them out of what? Nurses used to fold parachutes. The Tuskegee nurses used to do the parachutes for the Tuskegee Airmen. And until I found that out, it was just like, wow, that's part of history that it was lost out there, and now it's not, because now I'm going to tell that story. And
Absolutely.
Everything's a footprint for something else. You know what I mean? It's just finding those footprints.
Absolutely. So I'm just, sitting here listening to you and seeing your passion for history. But like, how do you working here at the museum? Like, let's say you are trying to figure something out and dig deep. Like with your new exhibit, you're having to research. Like, how does someone like you? You're just a guy here in the museum. If it wasn't recorded accurately, like, how do you put those pieces together? Like, what methods do you use to help capture the story on things that are really hard to figure out?
It goes back to what I was saying before about black and white. A lot of it is instilled research into specific stories, and then once you find out the fable of the story, then you find the realistic information on the story that you can actually tell the story. You'll have people that'll tell you about great atrocities or successes in military history, and you go, okay, obviously it was expanded upon every 10 years, somebody tells a story, but then you try to find the paperwork on it. Sometimes it becomes a political mess because if it's an embarrassment of the service of a general time in the past, they may not release that much information on it. You don't want to embellish on it, but then you'll go to a certain part of the journalist's research on it towards the questions continue to be asked. The Eglin 17 is the biggest one on that. So the Eglin 17, which happened here at Eglin, was a great atrocity. It put a big stain on white and black relationships, because the majority of the soldiers that were killed were African American. So the story was kind of buried from 1942 July 12th when it happened until 2015 when they did a short version of the story through the NAACP and the base. And when I got here in 17, they were like, hey, here's the story, we want you to start running with it. And you have to sit there and go, I'm not Walter Cronkite, so why are you, why all of a sudden that am I this person, this beacon? And it took another 4 years to actually do the research to get a piece here and a piece there, just because of word of mouth of me being here. And then more people were giving me information, but nobody in a larger volume who can really push it weren't doing it. So my organization just took it upon ourselves that, well, we're going to bring everybody home. We're going to do a memorial for everybody. Color is not the issue. The story of these soldiers is the issue that needs to be done. And then last year we did a ceremony where we made a bench and a plaque dedicated to all the soldiers that lost their life. It didn't matter what rank it was in. It didn't matter who came first, African American or the Caucasian officers that died with it. We brought the unit home. And that is the best thing you can do for taking care of military history is it drop the color in it. Talk about the events that are American history and go from there. If it branches out to different discussions on times that were in the past, then those are historical pieces of information that need to be known, to be cherished about where we are now. But still, it needs to be known, because somebody will just be taking it for granted and confused when they're hit upon certain attitudes or certain troubles that they can't figure out what's going on. And then we have agencies now where we didn't have in the past that addressed how to stop those things, how to deal with it. You know, our mental health is the biggest thing being in uniform, because, you know, our mission is to move forward step by step together. So that's the one thing I love. Once you start talking about it, then you start getting pieces and puzzles from other people who have the same thought ideas, and you realize you're not alone.
Right.
You know, they're like, I didn't know you were a history buff. Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. You know, and then that's how you get the story.
Absolutely. So you said the Eglin 17.
Mm-hmm.
So for those not familiar, you know, like if I Googled that, would it pop up? Is it that known at this point?
Yes, it is. The base was built by, the runways were built by African American soldiers from Camp Blanding. And an incident happened, I'll just say incident happened, where we lost 17 soldiers. And the gist of it was that at that time in the 40s, they funeral homes weren't dealing with African American soldiers, and they had to be sent to Pensacola to actually be taken care of in mortuary sense. And it bring a big shade on the aspect of the subject. It went to an aspect of racism, and then it went to an aspect of embarrassment, of blame, and then it just got blanketed over. And then in 2015, the story reared up again, and they did an episode on it. But they did it to the point where the general retirees in the area who knew about it, and the local leaders in the community weren't happy. There was no closure. So the families of the fallen soldiers really didn't know what happened to them. And just to make a long story short, doing the bench and doing the plaque just brought a certain focus of closure to it, because there was no official ceremony for the incident.
Right.
And you have to bob and weave through the political mugwire to make sure that honor is brought without controversy.
What a balancing act you have to do. It's like we weren't there for it, right? Mm-hmm. But the embarrassment, the shame, the tough talk, it invokes, like, humans are complicated, and it evokes these emotions, these thoughts that now all of a sudden, you know, you're getting these roadblocks.
Yes.
You have to kind of really narrow down the message on what you're trying to accomplish, so that people are comfortable with what you're trying to do.
Yes.
Although we weren't there for that. This was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yet still the emotions are still there. So, I think you did the right thing, right? You did the hard thing, the brave thing.
Oh yeah.
You had to basically live in this uncomfortable space with people to do right by people who built this base. And if you believe in going to heaven, God, an afterlife, you could imagine if there is an afterlife, that'd be like a restless spirit, right? The closure wasn't there. This thing happened, and they were never, they were never honored the way they should have been. There's no closure, no end chapter.
Yeah.
And then their families were still wondering all this time later.
Yes.
Were the families able to go to the ceremony?
No. There was some research into any of the surviving family. We didn't get a chance to actually get in touch, to actually have members come out, but the news article of the ceremony was sent, from what I heard, to family members that are who are still involved and know about it in their history of it. I've received a call from one of the soldiers. I'm sorry, I don't have the name right now, but they called and they thanked me for doing it. And then there was another soldier that was here during the 2015 that talked about doing a movie about it.
Wow.
I haven't heard any more about it, but it was great to see that our work here was a focal point of discussion continuing.
Absolutely.
And that lifts it off my hands.
Right.
It's like, well, we did our part. Being a representative of the base, we did our part in the aspect of honoring, and as the story embellishes and grows, we hope that the respect and the honor for the soldiers are still put forward first.
Definitely.
Then the aspect of times that are in the past. We just have to make sure that we honor the losses and maybe how they lost their life or things that came to it, so we can learn from it. And how they were put to rest, that's in the past. Let's honor the unit.
It sounds like you took control of what you can control now,
right?
Present day. No, I highly respect you for doing that. Where can we see the bench?
The bench is actually at the Air Force Armament Museum, right in front of the African American Military Heritage Display, which is right on the right-hand side of the building, next to the first EOD Memorial display. And it's right outside to the left-hand side, and it has the names of the soldiers on it and a plaque. We always want to give support for Florida Power and Light and the Odom Group, because they were our corporate sponsors in an aspect to help bridging the gap and raising funds for it. Their names are actually on the plaques. So anybody can come down and come outside and sit on it. Actually, somebody's sitting on it now, and they actually turned around and actually looked at the letters and started reading it. So once you see something like that, that means the job is done.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. All right, let's talk about the newest exhibit you're creating here, why it's at Eglin, and the African American Military History Society, and how that all kind of ties to the big things that you're doing right over here.
When I first came to work at volunteering here, I came through. It was weird. I came through on February, which was like 6 months after I got my transplant, because I got my transplant in August. So that next year, in 2018, I started volunteering here, and I saw for Black History Month, they were doing a presentation on Tuskegee, and there were only maybe 4 or 5 African Americans in the group, and everybody else was Caucasian. And I was like, oh, that's not right. What's going on with this? And then I found out doing research that there were events around the local community, but they just weren't utilizing the museum. And I said to myself, well, we have to change that. The museum is here for the community. The museum is a greater part of the mission of recruitment. It's just not static planes without stories. So I started doing Black History Month events, and then we did a Juneteenth event, and then the Air Force Museum Foundation blessed the museum with 4 closet huts for independent displays. And I kind of bullied my way in because I'm retired EOD. So we talked about the EOD heritage display, and then
is that what we're in right now?
Right. Okay. We're in it. And then my director was like, "Hey, if you want to develop one for African American, for Black history," and I was like, "Well, no, let's not get into the controversial aspect of that. Let's get into the uniqueness of it. Let's just dedicate it to African American military history, because that's not an argument. It's military history."
Right.
It's beyond discussion. These things happen to individuals in uniform fighting for their part of the flag. So we decided to go ahead and build a building, and I trumped up the design for the building, and Air Force Research Labs was one of the first ones to actually take development of a building, and then I met their designers out of Atlanta and became real good friends with them as developers. Artistic talent and media always comes together, and they helped me with the design for the building. Now, when it came for the funding aspect, our foundation had already did enough in the aspect of paying for the building. Each of the individual themes had to actually do research and funding for themselves. And then that's when I met you, because you actually came to the meeting that we had for the committee, and you were there when everybody was going crazy, going, let's get this money and let's get that money. And it was like, well, before money starts becoming zeros, we need a place to put it.
Right.
And I'm not going to use my bank account, much less ask the next person. So at that point, then we had to turn around and actually find a nonprofit. And we were first thinking about doing a Tuskegee chapter, which is a very great honorable chapter, but it's too finite. It really dictates just for Tuskegee. And I think it's something we would like to do down the line, but to encompass all aspects of African American military history, I had to take it upon myself to develop a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the history, which underneath would work with the funding and the grants to actually build the display. So really that's where it came from. And then it's one of those things that you have to do, you don't want to do, and you're like, all right, God, I'm just going to listen. And I always tell everybody the funniest joke you can tell God is what you're going to do.
This is true.
Yeah. So as much as I try to weave away from it, it's been a blessing. It's opened doors. I've met people I've never thought I would meet. I've gotten calls and pat on the backs from people I've never thought I would come across, and to actually see the number of visitors that come in of all colors to actually look at our display inside the museum and show interest for it. It's leaps and bounds because that's what you want. You want the colors to fade and just see it as information. And it's so great for somebody who is not African American to tell me about African American military history that I didn't know about. And that goes to the preservation. That goes to knowing something and being able to pass it on. And knowing it from somebody else who's telling you that story that is not you ever have somebody tell you something and it's like a challenge, and it's kind of funny in the aspect for African Americans. Like somebody will come in and tell you something about slavery or something about the pharaohs, and you're like, okay, you could have just told me, but I didn't know there was a challenge that I didn't know it. But, but I find with the African American military heritage, we're just generally sharing information. We're just generally sharing stories. And I've actually had somebody will come in and tell me about Irish Americans in the war or Indian Americans in the war, because the colored services at the time were just not African Americans, Hispanic, Irish, all of them were tied up all into that aspect of the colored forces. And when you learn that, it brings group mentality. It brings common ground to actually talk about, and which we all have in uniform. You deployed with somebody and you're going to do a mission, and you're not caring what color they are. You're caring about both of us coming home to our families. And I think the aspect of history should share the same format.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's really how it started. And how it's running right now, and I love it. When I'm tired and I don't want to do the paperwork or much less the event, and then have somebody else show interest to it that I wouldn't think would show so much interest to it, it gives you the fuel to go further. Definitely. And you know that, all right, I'm sorry Lord, I'm back. I just took a nap for a little bit.
Right. No, that's amazing. So we have 4 new structures here. What did you call them? You had a name for them?
They're Quonset huts. Never
heard of that.
They're aluminum houses that you would see during the World War II. They look like bunkers. We wanted to kind of have a design that was easier to build, that can withstand the Florida weather, but still had a heritage to them on a military installation.
No, you kind of tied them both together.
Yeah.
Like a protective building for the climate, but also the style of the building is history itself.
Right, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, you have to give that to my director. He's the one that came up with it. And I think it was a great idea because they stand out for the aspect of military, and you don't lose the aspect of the theme when you see them, and you don't lose the aspect when you walk in. You automatically accept them as a soldier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the way you see life. I think you have many talents. You're a man of many talents, and one of your unique talents that I didn't even realize you had until we talked about it was delivering messages in history in a way that people see it for what it is. Right? Like you kind of have to, you're not trying to trigger them or incite some negative emotion. You have to deliver these messages in a way where they see it as history. That takes a special talent to do. If you present things a certain way, none of this could be here right now.
No, it couldn't. It takes a passion. I just enjoy, all right, as a media developer, and you're finishing your work, you took the 13, 14 hours to do the sound and compile the speech and the color, and then somebody sees it and you see that look in their eye where they got it. The voice blurs away and they just receive the quality of the message of what you just developed. That is instilled in us as NCOs, as leaders of what we're tasked to do. Not leaders of men, but just leaders of what we have a passion of doing and what we're trying to develop. So when I'm talking to somebody, I'm just truly having a conversation of sharing information back and forth, whether it's favorite barbecue recipe, how not to burn ribs,
Right.
But it's the same aspect of interest. And when somebody sees that you're passionate about the information you're giving them and not trying to belittle them or challenge them in that aspect, it opens doors for you. Tell somebody something and then they find out it's helpful, then they'll come and tell you. And you never know. You never know the information you get you're going to use later on, or somebody you're talking to you may not see tomorrow. So you got to take every conversation for the blessing that it is.
Absolutely. And I mean, I feel like you're changing the world one conversation at a time. I really do. So, Mr. Holmes, we hit all of our topics today. I'm super blessed and honored to be spending this time with you.
No, it's mine.
I want to come back at some point with just my stands you see there and kind of see some of your favorite exhibits.
Okay.
I think that'd be a cool touch to this, so we'll figure that out on the back end.
Okay.
But as we come to a close here, is there anything you want to pitch or any final thought that you have for the listeners that are here to the very end of the conversation?
I love your podcast. I watch it. I love watching your friends. We have a number of mutual friends who have got their commission, and it's such a blessing to hear them talk about their day and their future, but the excitement that they actually talk about being on your podcast, talking about it.
Right.
Is just as good as the commission itself,
Yeah.
And so I look forward to seeing it. My daughter, who's in Denver, is a great fan of yours. Once I told her about it,
awesome!
I think I told her I gave her the link, and within like 2 days, she was like, "My friends love it," and it was like. And I was like, "Your friends?" And she said, "Yeah, the whole artistic community out in Denver, they just love it. They just think it's so awesome." And so, to me, it's hitting major leagues for us sitting down right here. So you tell me that of how I'm a blessing now is you for what you're doing, what you're doing with your family.
Yeah.
And being able to just watch what you're going to do with it in the future, I'm all seated and already. So never think that it's one-sided.
I appreciate
you're a force
that.
to be reckoned with.
Thank you. And you've been there since the beginning.
Yes.
Since the very start.
Yeah. When you first told me about it and the excitement in your eyes, I was like, all right, this is it. I want to see more. And then I have more people talk about it. And then when Colonel Mincer introduced me to you, she was like, "Hey, this guy's the real deal." I mean, and I was just like, "I know him. He's been with us since day one."
I even came to talk to you when I wanted to give up. You know what I mean? I was like down and out, just getting my butt handed to me.
Yeah.
And you kind of encouraged me to hang in there.
Always for it. Always for it. Always
Absolutely.
for it. As long as you got family, as long as being deployed and then being on short tours and working 16 hours, it would drive me crazy. But knowing that, at the end of it, I get to go home and see my family. Some people don't have that, so we're already blessed. Mm-hmm. We're already blessed, and we already know the fortitude to be able to do it because we've done it before. So for you to do this and to keep doing it, you're going to have bad days, but, we're built to get through bad days,
Absolutely.
Just weather it through.
Absolutely. No, I did weather it through, thankfully, with
Mm-hmm.
talking with mentors like you, and every time I did, I got through it.
Mm-hmm.
Something amazing would happen. Someone was impacted by a story. I would get these hints,
Mm-hmm.
That, hey, this is doing things for people. Like, people are listening, they're appreciating it, so don't stop. I would get those hints. So hanging in there definitely paid off.
Baptism by fire.
Absolutely.
Everybody needs a testimony, right?
Definitely.
There you go.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. This was the hero's journey of Jonathan Holmes, and we're out.